Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the ninth round of the Norway Chess tournament being held here in Stavanger, Norway. Now, in the ninth round, I'm playing with the white pieces against the current world champion, Ding Liren, who I defeated earlier in the tournament with black in the classical game. Now, this time, of course, I have the white pieces, and with me trailing Magnus by 1 point, it is crucial that I try to win the classical game if I want to win the Norway Chess event. All right, without further ado, let's jump right into the action. So, in this game, I decided to play d4 once again, rounding out my tournament with 5 whites and having played 1 d4 in every single game. Ding plays knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and now this move bishop b4. And here I decide to return to my roots by playing this move e3. Now, as you'll probably recall, a couple days ago against Magnus Carlsen, I played this f3 same-ish variation in the Nimzo Indian defense, but in the 2 earlier games of the tournament, I played e3 against Fabiano Caruana and Ramesh Babu Praggnanandh. So I go e3, and here Ding decides to castle, bishop d2, and now we get this move d5. Now, Pragg obviously played c5 against me, but d5 is generally considered to be more solid. Here I play the move knight f3, we get b6, I chop the pawns, and now I play this move bishop d3. Ding goes bishop d6, and now I play this move knight to b5, trying to take the bishop on d6. Ding goes bishop e7, I castle, we get c5, and now I play this move knight e5. Now, in this position, you're probably wondering, well, wait, you put the knight here and you just helped him retreat the bishop. What are you doing? Now, ultimately, this is a line that I looked at in the candidates for my opponent Gukesh in the final round, and I simply thought that it's an interesting try to get out of theory where you can just play chess. All right. So, Ding goes bishop b7 here, and now I play the move rook c1, and he plays this move rook e8. Now, this was the first move that took me by surprise. I looked at many moves here, including knight d7, knight c6, a6, c4, etc. But Ding plays the move rook e8. Now, this is a very sensible and logical move, and it's really unfortunate that this move caught me by surprise, because it's very hard to figure out what I'm supposed to do without knowing the exact position. Now, keep in mind, one of the lines black can play is a6, knight c3, and then something like knight c6, knight e2, and rook e8, which will become very similar to the game, but black has played a6 to kick the horse back to c3 and e2. So, getting back to the game, when Ding plays rook e8 here, I decided ultimately to play knight c3, and the reason I play this move is because I thought about playing f4 to build the classic diamond hand formations in the center of the board. Big shout out to everyone, including myself, who did buy GME today, by the way, in the low 30s before the rocket. But anyway, back to chess. We have the diamond hands formation here with the knight and the pawns, but in general, I wasn't sure if this is actually good because I thought here black could play knight c6 and then maybe something like knight e4 down the road. And without knowing that bishop e1, bishop h4 is fine for white, it's just generally very hard to play this position because the pawns in the center are super soft. For example, after a6, knight c3, black can try to take, and now apparently after knight e2, white is doing okay here, but without knowing this, it's very, very difficult to figure it out. So, I play knight c3 instead, trying to be logical. We get knight c6, knight e2, and now Ding plays the move rook c8. And here I play this move bishop c3. Now, this move is completely acceptable, but once I play this move, the position starts to peter out to where it's most likely going to be a draw. Initially, I did think about playing this move pawn to f4 anyway, because the knight guards the pawn on d4 here, and now I oversupport the knight on e5, once again with the classic diamond hands formation, but I just wasn't sure what's going on. For example, black can play a move like bishop to f8 here, potentially. Black can also play something like knight e4 maybe, and without knowing that this is okay, it's very hard to go into such a position. Now, ultimately, considering the tournament standings, I probably should have played this move, because once I played bishop c3 and Ding chopped the horses on e5 and played knight e4, I was up a lot of time on the clock here, nearly 30 minutes, but I spent a ton of time, and I simply could not find a way to try to play for an advantage. Now, there were many lines that I considered before ultimately moving my bishop to e1. The first line that I considered was queen c2, but after knight takes bishop, bishop takes pawn, king h8, pawn takes knight g6 here, I thought that after sacking the bishop on g6 here, I'm probably okay and can draw the game, but after bishop to f8, I simply didn't see a way to play for more. Now, the computer actually says after knight f4, let's just say rook c6, and then e6 here. Apparently, after queen e7, I'm guessing you can simply make a repetition, but you are down a bishop here, and if you don't see the repetition and you're not 3600, it's very, very difficult to go for this because you literally have a queen and a horse in the game, and your 2 towers are very passive, and you're down a bishop, and I do not think that any human would probably save this position. I think there's a very good chance that after bishop g7, whether it's me, Magnus, anybody, we would probably lose this position with the white pieces. So I really wanted to play queen c2, but after a long think, I couldn't make it work. Now, the next line that I considered was bishop b5 here, attacking the rook on e8, taking advantage of the fact that black has not pushed the pawn to a6. Now, After bishop b5, the reason I didn't play this is initially I thought black could take the bishop, but after rook takes and rook f8 here, there's a very strange move, rook to a3, attacking the pawn on a7, and I thought that here I was actually doing quite well, because if black goes a5, then I can go rook to d3, and down the road after, say, c4, rook d2, let's just say rook c5, and a4 here, I plant the bishop on b5, and now I can try to put maximum pressure on this pawn on d5 here. So I was feeling very good about this alternative initially, but then after rook to f8, I simply couldn't come up with a good idea, because I thought after bishop e1 here, there were two issues. First of all, I thought black could go c4 with the idea of knight c5 and knight d3. Keep in mind, there's also a threat of maybe something like, let's say, h3, knight c5, where this bishop could end up getting trapped on b5 with no squares, and there's a jump to d3 to boot. So after c4, knight d4, I thought after, say, knight c5, I simply didn't really see how I could be better here. There's a6 to kick the bishop. There's knight d3 with a bastion. And just in general, once again, I thought that if anybody is better here, it will be the player with the black pieces. Now, of course, the computer just laughs in my face and says, just go f4, ignore everything, and support the pawns in the center, and white's better. But at the end of the day, I'm not 3600 Stockfish. I can't find such moves. So when I couldn't find something that I was satisfied with after rook f8, then I rejected bishop b5, and then it became a question of what other moves exist. Now, I really did not want to play the move bishop to e1, but if I don't go bishop e1, I think I'm simply worse if I don't go for this bishop b5 or this queen c2 move. So ultimately, I play the move bishop e1, and now Ding plays c4 here, which is the move I expected, and I trade the bishop for the knight. Now, again, I didn't want to do this, and that's why I spent so much time, but I didn't see anything better. If I move the bishop back to b1, for example, there's bishop c5 here, and now the pawn on e5 is weak, and I can't go f4 to protect it, because then I hang the pawn on e3, and I lose the game. So I take on e4, he takes, I play bishop c3, and now Ding kind of caught me off guard when he played this move b5. I was sure that Ding was going to trade the queens on d1 here and play something like rook to d8, and after, say, knight d4, for example, I thought bishop c5, and I think the game should end in a draw pretty soon. One sample line is something like h3, takes, bishop d4, and something like rook to d5. Maybe bishop d5 is actually simpler. And in this position, we have opposite colored bishops, even material, and realistically, this should be a draw. Very easily for both sides. And so I was pretty sure the game would be a draw, but then Ding played b5, allowing me to go bishop d4, which is my dream, because now I create the classic wooden shield, and most importantly, queens do not come off the board. Ding plays a5, and now I go knight to f4, and here Ding finds the move bishop c5. Now, initially, I wanted to play the move knight g3 to try and put the knife on f5, but after queen d7, I really did not see a good continuation. One sample line I considered was bishop b6 to attack the pawn on a5, but after queen to e6, bishop takes a5, and queen takes e5. Black has the two b's, potentially control over the d file down the road, and I thought, once again, if anybody is better here, it will be black. So I go knight f4 here. Ding plays bishop c5, a very good move, by the way. Now I trade the bishops. Again, not a move that I wanted to play, but I simply didn't see a better continuation. So I trade the bishops, he trades the queens, takes on c5, and now I play this move h4, trying to create the classic bastion for the knight on f4, where there's no way to kick the horse from f4. Here, Ding plays rook c takes e5, and temporarily I'm down a pawn, but once I play this move a4 here, black is going to have his pawn structure ruined. He's still going to be up a pawn here after bishop c6, rook d6, rook c8 takes, and knight e2, but black's bishop can't really attack any of these pawns on the dark squares. I'm bringing this knight to c3, and all these pawns in the center of the board are a little bit loose. So Ding goes king f8, I play rook a1, a4, knight c3 here, hitting the bishop and the two pawns at the same time. We get bishop to e8, and now I play the move rook b6. Here, Ding goes h5, I play rook b4, and now he plays this move g6. Now, Ding spent a lot of time before playing this move. Ultimately, it's probably not the way that I would have played it, but Ding has supreme confidence in the endgame that we're about to reach. So I go rook a2, king g7, takes, c3, takes. Now, the dust has settled here, and white is up a pawn. But the 4 versus 3 in this situation, all the pawns are on the same side of the board, so this is a theoretical draw. Now, in a rather ironic twist of fate, I actually had this exact endgame with the black pieces against none other than the former 5-time world chess champion, Magnus Carlsen, here in Norway, actually. I believe it was the 2015 edition, and I did draw this endgame successfully, even though Magnus had the extra pawn. Now, having had that experience, of course, it made it very easy for me to play this endgame because I remembered the way that Magnus tried to set up a winning idea. So the game continues. I eventually bring the king. I'm just going to make a lot of quick moves here so we don't have to waste time. Go G3, we get to this position, and now here I play this move rook A7, rook E2, and E5. Now I can always go G4 at some point, but after takes, if I take with the pawn, there's rook to H2, king G3, and rook E2, and this is a draw. And if I ever take with the king here, for example, once again, black and check, and go rook E2, or even rook H2, we'll see something pretty similar in the game, but there's a reason I don't play G4, which is I want to try and keep the tension. So here I go E5, Ding plays rook E1. Very important not to move the rook away, because then E6 would actually be very good for white. Apparently, it's still a draw, surprisingly enough, but there's no reason to allow this. So Ding goes rook to E1, and now I have to go rook A4. I can't really move the king. I can't push the pawn. So what I try to do here is bring the rook over and then activate my king. Get rook E3, rook A1, king E4, check, king D5, check, check, rook A1, and now I play this move rook D3, followed by F4. The rook guards the base of the chain on G3. The pawn on G3 supports the pawns on F4 and E5, as well as H4. Ding goes rook A1, king C6, king F8, and slowly my king comes back to F3, and here I decide to play the move G4. Now, of course, I can keep waiting with rook B3, rook C3 forever, but at some point you have to do something, and knowing that the game is very likely to be a draw here, I didn't want to waste a bunch of energy trying to win this when I know that it will be a draw with perfect play. So I go G4, Ding trades, and he goes rook to A1, trying to check the king from behind. I play the move F5, takes, and now he plays rook F1. I go king E4, and now we get the move king G6. Now, Ding spent quite a bit of time before finding this move, but this is actually the absolute best move. There are many ways to draw this, but after king G6 followed by king H5, there's simply no way for white to really create any winning plans at all, or chances to swindle the game away. So finally, I play rook G3, king H5, rook G5, takes, rook F5, and now Ding takes the rooks correctly. If black were to play rook E1, it's probably still a draw, but here it gets scary because the F7 pawn is under attack, and it feels a little bit iffy. But black can trade the rooks, and now the very important move, king G3, draws the game. If black goes to H3 after king F6, king G4 takes, and E6, the pawn runs free, and white wins the game. Same thing for king H5, king F6, king G4, exact same line with E6. But Ding plays king G3, I go king G5, king F3, king F5, king E3, king F6, king E4, and now I play the move E6. If I take on F7, king takes E5 also leads to a draw, and after E6 takes, we end up with the bare kings on the board, and the classical game ends in a draw. Now, this definitely was very disappointing for me. I was actually quite upset with myself after this game because much like the game against Ali Reza, I'm trying really hard to create the chances in the classical game, and it simply did not happen. I did not have any moment where I was ever much better, or I had some chance to maybe really create the complications that I desperately needed. So, classical game ends in a draw, which means we go to Armageddon, and once again, obviously I have the white pieces with 10 minutes versus 7. Now, unlike the other Armageddon that I played against Fabiano, where I played d4, I decided that in this Armageddon with the white pieces, the final Armageddon where I am going to have the white pieces, I wanted to play something completely random to just try and get a game. So we get knight f3, d5. I play e3, and here we get knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop e7, b3, castles, and now I play this move g3. Now, the reasoning behind this is I want to go for the double fianchetto, but besides that, I want to try and create an imbalanced position. Keep in mind, in Armageddon, a draw means nothing. You can only win with the white pieces, or else it counts as a loss. So we get c5, bishop g2. Ding plays d4. I go knight a4, knight c6. Takes, castles, e5, d3. And now we have the very famous classic setup with the Ben-Oni structure. I have the pawns on d3 and c4 versus the pawns on e5 and d4. Now, keep in mind, Magnus actually played against Ding earlier in the tournament classic game and won out of the Ben-Oni structure. But Magnus himself was saying a Benoni is a Benoni, and it's not great just in general. But in an Armageddon game, you need the imbalance with the white pieces, and you have to try and win. So I actually wasn't all that unhappy with the position. So we get h6. I play a3 here, trying to go for b4. Ding plays a5, rook e1, bishop d6, and now I play this move h3. Now, probably what I should have done was played something like bishop to d2, because after bishop f5 here, if I go c5, bishop c7, maybe I can reroute this knight to c4. There also might be a b4 idea as well, but it's very, very tricky to judge where you should use your time or not. And here I was trying to play very quickly and play on the flow, where I just play simple moves and just keep trying to build a time advantage. So I go h3. We got bishop f5. Keep in mind, the reason h6 was so valuable, by the way, I didn't point out, is that if black goes bishop f5, I can maybe go bishop g5 and trade the bishop for the knight, or knight h4 to hit the bishop. And in this position, after bishop f5, I can't put the bishop on g5 here. And if knight h4, the bishop retreats back to the h7 square. So I go g4, bishop h7, I play g5, takes, and now Ding goes rook e8, and here I play the move c5, trying to jump with the horse to b6. Ding goes bishop c7, preventing knight b6, and now I play the move knight b2, trying to reroute the horse to c4, where it can target the pawn on e5, and potentially jump once again to b6 or d6. We get queen d7, I trade the bishop for the knight, and now I go knight h4, and here Ding plays the move f5. Now, of course, hard to be critical. Computer, I think, wants king h8 here, because if I go queen h5, now after rook g8, black can probably create some kind of double stack and be much better. But in Armageddon, it's always a matter of the time usage and just finding quick moves. So we get f5. I play queen h5, king g7, and now I play the move knight c4. Ding goes bishop g6. I trade the knight for the bishop, and I play the move queen f3. Now, around this point in time, I thought that the worst was over. I knew that I was much worse out of the opening phase, but with a nice horse on c4, which targets the pawn on e5, and the pressure on the diagonal, I felt that I should be doing quite well. So here Ding plays rook d8, and now I play this move b4, which is simply a blunder and a move that I should not have played. What I should have done here is I should have used a little bit of time and played the more obvious looking move, I should say, which is rook to b1, intending to play for b4 and b5 to pressure the knight or use the open b file. Now, if I played rook to b1, it would have been very interesting to see what would have happened in the game, because I had a significant time advantage. I do want to say that I think there's a good chance that I would have won, but I played this move b4 instead. Simply the reason I say this, after rook b1, I think the best move is queen e6 here, with the idea that if b4, now there's e4, and I can't take the pawn without hanging the knight. But after queen e6, something like queen g3 followed by b4, b5 again. And I think that it's just much harder for black to play than it is for white to play. And with a time situation, who knows what would have happened. But instead I play b4, and the reason that I'm so critical of this move is that it's forcing the action, and now I have to prove why this move is good versus being in a situation where what was I going to say, where my opponent has to think. Ding, of course, takes the pawn on b4, and he asks me, what am I doing here? Now here I play this move rook b1, which is a bad move. Probably I should have played the move rook to a7, trying to create pressure on the 7th rank here. Now after e4 and takes in this position, there's probably bishop b8, rook a4, and knight c6, and black is, or not rook a4, sorry, rook a8, knight c6, and black is probably still a little bit better. I honestly think if this had happened, I would have lost the game, because again, white's moves are too difficult to play, and black can push p, and there's pressure on the e file. So I go rook b1, completely missing this next move which Ding played, which even if it's not the top computer move, I think personally is quite brilliant, which is this move knight to a6. Now, I completely missed this move. The only lines that I saw were knight c2 or e4 or knight c6, but Ding found this move in about 12 seconds, and I think this is simply an all-star move considering the situation and only needing a draw. Now here, after a long think, I play this move queen b7, and this move just loses the game on the spot. What I should have played here was something like knight b6, and I guess if black takes, after rook b6, knight c5, apparently I have queen g3, although even rook e6 here, takes, rook e5, queen d6 should easily be a draw for black in this position. Black is an extra pawn. White can probably draw this, but objectively, the chance of winning should be very low. But instead, after spending 40 seconds, I come up with a brilliant idea to take, knight c5, and then play the move queen a7, intending to play rook b7, creating a nice double stack and a kebab on the 7th rank. But after Ding plays knight d3 instantly, I suddenly realize that I've just blundered, and I am effectively lost. The move that I wanted to play was this move rook b7 here, but now black can simply play the move rook to a8. And apparently I have queen b6, which I actually did not see in this position. Okay, so I actually just missed everything here. I thought after rook a8 I resigned the game, but apparently after queen b6, rook c8, it's still probably losing, but I should have gone for this anyway. I simply thought after rook a8 I had no squares for the queen, and I would lose the game. But the point is, rook b7, I did not see rook a8 at all. So after a long think, I play the move rook d1. And now after e4, black is a classic connect 4, as well as a bastion on d3. And black is completely winning. I go queen a2, knight f4. Now I go rook b7, because rook a8, I can just move the queen away. We get rook e7, queen a7, takes. Ding goes e3 here. Another good move, by the way, just forcing the position to open up here. And black can go queen d5 or queen c6. So here I play knight e5. We get queen d5, knight f3. And now Ding plays this move e2. Now here I play the move rook e to e1. Again, ignore the evaluation bar. The line that I really wanted to play here was this move rook takes c7. But unfortunately, if I take, I think black can sack the queen with queen takes, queen takes f3. I guess after takes, Takes, king g2. Apparently this is equal because black has to trade the rooks. Of course, draw would still be good enough. But I thought this was winning. I also thought here black could play rook d to d7 here, because if I trade the rooks, after takes, the queen guards the rook, and the pawn attacks rook on d1. If I play rook c1 here, there's a beautiful move. Rook takes rook, and now black under promotes to a knight, checking the king here. I cannot recapture because that puts my king in check. And after king f1, queen b5 check, king g1, black captures the knight with check, and black wins the game. So I play rook e1, Ding goes rook d7. The idea is simply to play d3, d2. I play queen a6, d3, rook b2, bishop e5. Now I go rook b5, queen e4, and this move rook b6. And here Ding finds this move f4. Not the only move to win, but pretty much all roads lead to Rome here. But f4 simply guards the pawn on g6 against the threats, and black is going to play d2 on the next move. I go rook e6, Ding plays queen f5, play rook c6, he goes d2, I take the pawn, he queens, I take the bishop, and now he plays the move rook takes e5. And I simply resign the game as the pawn on g6 is not under attack, and there's not much I can do. I could obviously take the rook here, but at the very least, black could even just take the rook. I know they're forced mates, but even this one with king f7, all the squares are covered, black is an extra queen, and it's game over. So after rook takes e5, I resign the Armageddon game. That means that Ding gets the extra half point out of the match. We draw the classical game, we each get one, but then he gets that extra half point. In other bad news, Magnus Carlsen drew his classical game against Alireza Firouzja, but he won a very nice Armageddon game. Which means that now going to the final round, I trail Magnus by 1.5 points. The Armageddon simply have not gone my way, but at the end of the day, I still feel like I played pretty well in the classical portion, so I can't be too unhappy, although I am unhappy with the classical game from today specifically. So, I'm down by 1.5 points going to the final round. Tomorrow, I will have the black pieces against Prague. From India, Magnus will have the white pieces against Fabiano. The situation is very, very clear. If I want to win the tournament, I have to win the classical game, and I need Magnus to either draw his classical game and win the or draw the classical and win the Armageddon, in which case we tie for first, or for Magnus to lose the classical game and for me to win my classical game in order to win the tournament. I guess Magnus could actually win the classical and lose the Armageddon, which would also give me the win. But if I want to win the tournament, I'm going to have to win the classical game with the black pieces tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's an uphill battle, but we still have one more round to go. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap from the 9th round of Norway Chess. Once again, if you are not subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below. And we will be back tomorrow with a recap after the 10th and final round here in Norway Chess. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.